Hello, I'm Bailey Leasure, and this is the Leasure Sports Podcast. I'm going to get into the news this week. A lot of news to talk about. Um, if there's any news that's happened, this is airing the or I'm recording this the day prior to this coming out. So if there's any news that has come out since then, I'll give an update on it in the description. So I'm gonna kick it off with NBA news. I didn't even realize that when I recorded the podcast, I recorded it last Thursday, and I didn't even realize the NBA draft was going on. So I didn't even I didn't really cover the NBA draft. I don't really have much news on it other than, expectedly Lonzo Ball went to the Lakers. That was the only thing. I mean, I don't like I've said before. I don't cover basketball that much because it's probably the least amount of sport out of any of the big four sports that I've cover, but I have a lot of NBA news to talk about. As I'm recording this, the big news that came out today was the Clippers traded Chris Paul to the Rockets. Huge trade. Overall, I think probably considering what the Clippers got, they got a couple decent players and I think a first round draft pick. So good deal for them. Good deal for I think the Rockets. They get another big player to put up with Harden, but also I saw on my phone when I woke up this morning that the Rockets are going to go after Paul George. I know a lot of people are looking at him. The Cavs are looking at him as well, but I think the Rockets are trying to build another big three team to match up with the Warriors and compete in the West. But we'll see what happens there. The It's been the front office for the Knicks has been very controversial over a couple of players. And Jackson and the New York Knicks, have decided to part ways. This is probably a good move for the Knicks, in my opinion, just because of just what had been going on with the trades and the dysfunctional front office and ownership. I mean, it's just between GM Phil Jackson and the rest of the front office. So I think it's probably a good move for both to part ways. The NBA awards were this week, past week, I believe on Monday, and the Draymond Green won the won the Defensive Player of the Year. Russell Westbrook, like I thought he would won the MVP. Kevin Durant gave him a shout out on Twitter. Westbrook had a pretty good speech. I thought it was pretty good choice, and good year for Westbrook. Despite Kevin Durant leaving, he's able to lead his team to the postseason, and he played at a really high level. So good for him. Bucks Malcolm Brogdon won Rookie of the Year. Eric Gordon won Sixth Man of the Year. Giannis named Most Improved Player at the NBA awards. So pretty good. Pretty good trade or pretty good week news for the NBA, and who knows, July 1st is approaching, which is the beginning of the free agency period in the NBA and the NHL. So, which segues great into my next, where I'm going to talk about NHL news. Arizona Coyotes. Last week I talked about the departures of Shane Doan and Mike Smith. Well, as after I recorded that podcast, it came out that Dave Tippett and the Coyotes were parting ways. Overall, I think it's a you know what I think it's a good move. I mean, even though Tippett gave him a lot of great success, including coaching that team in 2012, where they went to the Western Conference Finals, he hasn't been in the Coyotes for 5 straight seasons have not been in the postseason. So there had to be a change, especially the direction this franchise is going in. Jim Playfair, I think Monday, it was announced that he is parting ways with the Coyotes as well. So the Coyotes are looking for a some new coaches. So we'll see what happens there. But the Coyotes, even after Dave Tippett and Doan Smith leaving, they made a huge improvement from trades right before the NHL draft on Friday. The Arizona Coyotes were able to get Derek Stepan and Antti Ranta, goaltender, from the Rangers for, I think it was Tony DeAngelo. So I think it was a really good move. Not only Coyotes got a really great top center, but they got some good depth in the goaltenders along with Louis Domingue. I think it's gonna look very well for the Coyotes. Coyotes were not done there. They traded Connor Murphy and I think a draft pick or another player. I think Dolphin, I think is his name, Lauren Dolphin. I may have that name wrong. For to Chicago for Nicholas Jarmelson. And this was a great deal for the Coyotes. I think it's a great defenseman to put up with Oliver Ekman-Larsson. Hopefully, Alex Goligoski has a really good season this year. I think overall it's a very good deal. Um, for the Coyotes, I saw a lot of Blackhawks fans on their Twitter page, Facebook page, and they weren't really happy about that. They felt like they traded their best defenseman away. This is a guy who has won a couple Stanley Cups with Chicago, so we'll see what happens there. But I think overall, pretty good deals. Hopefully, the Coyotes won't make more or upgrades in the free agency period. But I think right now the biggest concern right now is to find a new head coach and a new assistant coach. So we'll see what happens there. Other news going on: Joe Thornton. A lot of teams are looking at him, including the Sharks. He might not, the longtime San Jose Shark. He might not be on that team next year, which is odd. Him and Patrick Marleau are both free agents, but I think the Sharks, they might be looking into the future. So we'll see what happens there. The Oilers signed Connor McDavid, their number one player, to an extension for 8 years, $106 million. I think this is one of the highest extensions in NHL history. So we'll see what happens there. I will be doing a podcast recapping the free agency period between both the NHL and the NBA. I'm gonna probably give that a week or so after the free agency period, just after the big free agents are signed. I'll recap that. Like I said before, I'm gonna do a blog probably about the Coyotes moves. So we'll see what happens there. Moving on to Major League Baseball news. There's been a lot of baseball news. Francisco Rodriguez, who I believe is on Detroit, before was released, but he quickly was signed by the Washington Nationals for a minor league deal. One trade happened. The Marlins are looking like sellers coming up in the trade deadline, along with the Giants, but the Rays acquired Dean Echeverria from the Marlins, so the Rays were able to get him, so he really didn't have to move that far. It's expected Justin Verlander will hit the trade market, and also before I talk about the Diamondbacks, Drew Smiley from the Seattle Mariners is out for the season. He will have season-ending Tommy John surgery. And now I'm going to recap the Arizona Diamondbacks news. The Arizona Diamondbacks took 3-4 games from the Philadelphia Phillies. So I was at the Saturday game when Robbie Ray pitched. A pretty good game for them. They won that game 9-2. Diamondbacks had a very interesting game last night. As I'm recording this, they were down back and forth game. In the seventh inning was they gave up 3 runs, a couple errors in that inning. They slowly came back, and they got 2 runs in the 8th inning. Unfortunately, during that inning, Nick Ahmed, he was hit by a pitch. Has a small fracture in his hand. He was just put on the 10-day disabled list. They are now in his place going to bring up Kentil Marte, one of the big prospects in AAA Reno. So I think it's going to look like it's a big loss from the Diamondbacks from a defensive standpoint, but hopefully Marte can play really well in his place. So we'll see what happens there. But meanwhile, the Diamondbacks entered that inning down 6-5. They scored. David Peralta led off the inning with a game-tying home run, and then in the 10th inning, Chris Herman hit a walk-off single and scored Ray Fuentes. So really a good. Great comeback victory from the Diamondbacks. They've done a phenomenal job. This team's just got no quit this year. This is a different team. It really reminded me of the 2011 team, and even last night, I think Mark Grace, he said that he this team statistically looks better than the 2001 team. Now, obviously, we're gonna have to see at the end of the season, but obviously that team is a lot different considering you had 2 Hall of Fame pitchers on that staff. Nothing against our pitchers there, but let's not get ahead of ourselves there. Recapping the rest of the MLB standings right now, as I'm recording this, the Rockies have currently lost 7 games in a row. They're playing the Giants right now. They're tied 3-3 in the 7th inning. Rockies have really not done well from a standing standpoint. They've lost 7 in a row. At the beginning of, as I'm recording this last week, They were in first place, and now they're 5.5 games back and in third place. Still ahead of still the second wild card team. Diamondbacks are a game and a half back of the LA Dodgers. And so this is gonna be a pretty interesting summer. That division is one of the most competitive divisions in baseball, and I think it might come down to the last week before we decide who's going to be the division team and who's going to be the wild card teams. The Dodgers, after winning 10 in a row, they lost Monday to the Angels. They were able to win last night. Diamondbacks won to keep themselves a game and a half behind the Dodgers for second place. So we'll see what happens there. Meanwhile, in the rest of the East, the Red Sox have been able to have a game lead up on the Yankees. That's turning into a pretty close race. Cleveland and Minnesota have been back and forth. The Indians now have a half-game lead in the Central over the Cleveland Indians. Houston has a huge lead in the American League West. I mean, they're running away with that division. National League East, the Nationals still have a pretty good lead, 8.5 games over the second place Atlanta Braves. Milwaukee still has the lead in that division by a game, and man, the Cubs have not looked good. And Miguel Montero called out Jake Arrieta for some of the pitch calls or not being able to throw guys out or hold guys. And after he made the comments to the media, I will leave a link in the comment section below over that. And in the process, today he was DFA'd. Just not looking good for him, so that was not good for him. But yeah, the Brewers, Cubs have just been they've probably been the most underwhelming team this year in baseball. Been most disappointing, especially after winning the World Series last year and ending that World Series drought. But just not good for them this year. I think the National League's just been more competitive. Central's looked a lot weaker, and the Cubs are not. They're in second place, just not looking good for them. Last piece of news I'm going to talk about just a little bit of NFL news, not much. As we're approaching in about a month or so, training camp will begin. But Kirk Cousins is a long way from a long-term deal with the Washington Redskins, and Nick Fairley, who's had a heart condition, said it was career-threatening, but for at least this season, he'll be out for the season with that heart condition. So hopefully he gets better and we see him on the field again for the New Orleans Saints. So thanks everybody for watching. I have a sports blog episode I just released as I'm recording this, so check that out. That's my second episode in the blog series where I debated about or talked about the Michael Jordan debate. So you're probably going to see another blog episode next week, and I'm going to be talking about how Major League Baseball and the competitiveness against the other big four sports. So probably podcast going to be coming out next week as well. So you're going to see those 2 videos a week. Thanks everybody for watching. Click like if you like the video. Comment if you agree or disagree with some of the topics I talked about, and if you like the content on my channel, please subscribe and follow me on Twitter at BetaLeisure96. So thanks everybody for watching, and I will see you all later.